I'm Austin Westfall. Let's get the latest on the Middle East. Let's bring in national security analyst and retired Marine intelligence officer Hal Kempfer. As always, Hal, good to see you. Let's get straight into the news here. So we've got a lot to cover today. Egypt sent a high-level delegation to Israel for talks Friday, seeking to push through a ceasefire agreement with Hamas and avert an Israeli offensive on Gaza's town of Rafah on the border with Egypt, which it warned could ruin regional stability, officials said. We've been talking about ceasefire negotiations for months, Hal, and they've basically gone nowhere. Is there any reason to believe that things may be different this time around?
Austin, a full court press to try and get some sort of agreement into place. You know, Israel's doing a lot of things, preparing on the ground, if you will, along with saying that they've made a decision on Rafah. They're also doing things that they can observe. They've said they've got a 40,000 tent city they're going to put in for evacuating, about 400 to 500,000 refugees in the Rafah area. That's a very substantial operation that basically signals to everyone that they're getting ready to go into Rafah. So they're giving a full court press. Interestingly, this Egyptian initiative corresponds to some interesting things that Hamas has been doing. They've been releasing videos of hostages, trying to, set the information environment, trying to appeal to the, certainly to the families, but also to those who really want Israel to make concessions. The other thing, though, is that Hamas has come out and for the first time in its history has said that they would consider not destroying Israel as part of their strategic goal, that they could see a situation where they lay down their arms and they would become a political party, and they would go to if everyone agreed to go to the 1967 borders and a two-state solution. And whereas what they're asking for on its face is not acceptable to Israel, it's a huge shift that's taken place. And I look at that in context with this Egyptian push with Israel, and certainly the U.S., Qatar, and other nations are trying to push through a deal. And so there's just a lot going on. I don't know what the next week will hold, but I do see a lot of momentum pushing for some sort of arrangement, although it may not come about. We've been here before, and there may be nothing that really comes about on this, but they're definitely making an effort.
So you touched on something that I want to ask a little more about, the fact that there's been hostage videos being released. Hamas released a video Saturday showing 2 hostages alive as it studied Israel's latest proposal for a ceasefire. The video shows 64-year-old American-Israeli citizen Keith Siegel, as well as 47-year-old Israeli citizen Omri Miran, who spoke briefly in the video as well. This is the second time in a week that a hostage video has been released. What do you make of the timing of these releases, Hal?
Well, the timing is certainly it's a strategic communication effort, if you will, by Hamas to try to appeal to those who are opposed to Netanyahu's regime, who are putting pressure on the government to come to some sort of agreement. There's tremendous domestic political winds blowing within Israel right now. There's a lot of calls from some very high-level officials that have, and certainly politicians, for Netanyahu to step aside. And this is playing to those dynamics, if you will, trying to force Israel to make concessions, force Netanyahu to agree to concessions with that as well. With that said, I also think this kind of plays both ways too. It allows Netanyahu to reference these and talk about the importance of what they're doing, but also talk about their inability to get Hamas to account for all the hostages. That's been a big problem, is their inability to actually physically count for the hostages, to make the arrangements to fit in within the what the U.S. and others have pushed as a 6-week ceasefire agreement of 40 hostages being released in exchange for a certain number of Palestinians being held by Israel. And of course, that was a few weeks ago that Hamas came back and said they're not sure that they can actually find those 40 hostages that were to be released. And so that's been a big issue all along, is can Hamas actually perform under such an agreement just to meet the basic requirements of what the agreement would stipulate?
I want to follow up on the Iran-Israel situation here. What people are looking at on the screen right now is a tweet from the IDF. I'll just continue reading what they've said in this post. They say the effects of Iran's attack on Israel can still be seen weeks after it happened. This photo is showing troops removing the debris of a surface-to-surface missile intercepted during the Iranian attack. This massive device that you're looking at was found by hikers in southern Israel. Hal, what have we seen on the Israel-Iranian front as of late? Has the temperature cooled off since Israel retaliated?
Austin, it kind of has. Iran kind of pushed it to the brink, if you will. Of course, Iran would say that Israel pushed it to the brink with the attack on the embassy grounds in Damascus. But that massive strike by Iran, which in retrospect looks like it was about what they could manifest. And despite all the rhetorical flourish saying that, the next strike will be devastating and Israel will not survive, the simple military operational reality is that they threw at Israel pretty much what they could throw at Israel, and that it didn't really have any effect. Most of it was shot down, like you see in the picture there. That's debris from from a successful shoot down of a missile. And none of the missiles really did much. A few of them hit an airfield or in and around an airfield that didn't cause a lot of damage. And so that was a very embarrassing thing for Iran, but it's also a strategic wake up call that despite all the rhetorical flourish, there are limitations, significant limitations on what Iran can do. And I think that follows up, of course, with Israel's response, which kinetically wasn't much. I think they destroyed a S-300 air defense system, but it's where they destroyed it, and it's how they put their systems in, if you will, and the location and the ability of the Iranians to identify those drones that got in there. I think that has unnerved the Iranian regime to a great deal, and they realize that one of their most protected places in all of Iran is very vulnerable to attack. And so things have cooled down quite a bit, and it's both of those things put together really had that cumulative effect.
I also want to ask a little bit about northern Israel, southern Lebanon. This is something that you and I have been talking about offline quite a bit because it is something that's important. It's something that we can't forget about. The Israeli Air Force posting this video on Twitter showing them striking and killing a senior member of the terrorist organization Jemaah in Lebanon, who they say promoted many terrorist acts against Israel. Hal, we're used to talking about Hezbollah in Lebanon, but what do we know about other terrorist entities that are up there as well?
Well, there are other groups that operate out of southern Lebanon. Hamas actually operates out of southern Lebanon, although we mostly think of them as a Gaza and to a lesser extent West Bank sort of thing. So there are other anti-Israeli groups that are operating up there, and they are targeted just like any other group is targeted. The interesting thing that came out from the IDF and from Israel, I believe it was yesterday, is a statement where they said they have successfully killed half the Hezbollah commanders on the southern border of Lebanon. That's a significant amount of commanders that were taken out. And again, when you're saying commanders, that's showing a capability to hit these key command and control, if you will, targets, the commanders themselves, but also a capacity in that they were able to take out half the commanders. Now, Hezbollah is not going to come, they're not going to say, yeah, half our commanders were killed. I don't expect them to come out and have a press conference admitting that. But that is a significant impact on Hezbollah. It's got to be incredibly disruptive to everything they're doing. And if you're looking at the strikes by Hezbollah into Israel, at times they have picked up, at times they've waned a little bit. Things are still very, very tense on that northern border. There still is I don't know if you'd call it low grade or lower grade exchange of fire going back and forth. There's lots of Israeli airstrikes, drone strikes, artillery strikes going into southern Lebanon in response to rocket strikes or rocket attacks, missile attacks coming out of southern Lebanon. But with that said, it does seem that things are going to remain tense for a while. But I look at that that hit on the commanders, and I'm kind of wondering just how well operationally, certainly strategically, but operationally, Hezbollah could do right now with missing all those key decision makers, those key planners across the board.
Let's talk about another Iran-backed group, the Houthis, because this is another thing you and I were talking about offline. The Houthis have damaged an oil tanker, and they downed another MQ-9 Reaper drone of the United States as they promise more attacks in opposition to Israel's war on Gaza. Hal, what is the significance of the Houthis taking down another Reaper?
Well, this is the third Reaper they've taken down. These are not inexpensive. They're about $30 million aircraft. They're not our highest performance drones. They're not our most expensive drones, but they are very expensive drones. And they can be used for intelligence, surveillance, reconnaissance. They can also be used for attack. And this was reportedly an attack drone, at least the initial reports are. And it was flying over Yemen, and they were able to take it down. And that's been something that's been a little bit bothersome with the entire campaign against the Houthis, is that some of our high-value assets, like the MQ-9 Reaper, have been successfully targeted by the Houthis and taken out. This also corresponded to the Houthis actually hitting a ship with an anti-ship missile. The Houthis have not gone away by any means. Their volume of fire has waned at times, but they have not gone away. And I imagine that and I say we, I'm talking about the coalition task force that sits off the coast, particularly the U.S. and Great Britain, are probably making plans on what they're going to do to respond to this particular provocation. And I'm anticipating that in the coming days, we'll see some sort of very kinetic response by the U.S. dealing with this and probably hitting wherever that missile came from that took down the drone.
Last but not least, I do want to hit some news here stateside. I want to show you a live picture that's coming through right now. This is out of Washington, D.C., Hal. The story of the week continues to be ongoing protests around the country about the Gaza war. Most of them have been taking place at college campuses around the U.S. This specific shot that we're looking at in D.C., I'm being told by our producers, is aimed at the White House Correspondent's dinner that's taking place tonight. My question for you is, has any of this protest activity actually moved the needle in any way in the Middle East, from a war perspective, from a politics perspective, from a social perspective? Anything, Hal?
Well, what you're seeing there is wind in Hamas sails. They get the impression from these protests that they're having a direct effect on America. They're having a direct effect on the politics in America. And honestly, certainly the Biden White House has been looking at this, listening to this. There are a number of supporters of Biden for re-election that have voiced some strong opinions about what the White House or the U.S. policy is with Israel, and what's the what we're supporting essentially in the Gaza Strip. So yes, there is an impact that this has. Of course, we see it directly here in the U.S. It's had a huge impact. Of course, I'm in L.A. University of Southern California canceled its main commencement ceremony. The colleges themselves, the schools themselves, are still doing the diploma handout thing, but the big 65,000 person commencement, and I was at the commencement they had last year. It's a huge affair that's out there. That was canceled for this year specifically because of the protests. One of the colleges here in California, Humboldt State up in Northern California, they essentially closed classes for the rest of the semester. They're going online. So this is having an impact all over the U.S. and it's being observed. Obviously, if it's on the news, it's being observed here in the U.S., but it's also being observed overseas, Middle East, Europe, elsewhere. And they're looking at this, and they're looking at ways that they can, I'm talking about Iran and other actors are looking at ways that they can foment more unrest in this regard with whatever covert means they have.
We continue watching these protests as they continue to gather around major hubs, I'll call it. We've been watching college campuses, Hal, but this one, as I said, the Correspondent's dinner appears to be what they're protesting at today.